DougDoug made me quit my job. Okay, that's not fair or entirely true, but hi, hello, I'm Big Rig. Welcome to my second channel. I just want to talk about my past year, the experiences I've had, quitting my job, doing YouTube for a full year, the impact that DougDoug had upon that, and what I can possibly give to you as maybe like a new creator or as someone who just enjoys my content and wants to hear my experience over the past year. It's going to be a little bit off the cuff, but hey, we're just going to send it. So first thing I want to talk about is the 1-year plan. This comes from DougDoug's video titled DougDoug's Guide for First-Time Content Creators. In that video, he talks about in the first half about having unique content, the importance of having unique content because it needs to be irreplaceable. Because there's just so many different videos, so many different creators out there. But in the second half of the video, he talks about the 1-year plan, where basically you as a creator need to be super committed to your craft. In this case, making YouTube videos. You need to commit yourself to doing it to a very specific time interval, and committing yourself to doing that at least for a full year. Despite the monetary challenges you might face, the social challenges you might face, etc. And yes, 1 year ago, I decided to take on, I don't want to call it a challenge, more so a inspired lifestyle, I guess, but it's something I decided to do. It was really inspirational to me at the time, and I really want to compare what he said to what my experience was, and how we might have differed in terms of what advice I would give, and I would also like to reinforce some of the really good advice he gave as well. So again, just to recap specifically what was said in the second part of the video relating to the 1-year plan. So when you have your two skill sets put together that make your video content unique, you then, of course, have to commit to actually putting this out in the world. This not only will make you better at your craft when it comes to like editing, storytelling, visuals, etc. It will also make you understand what your audience wants, and also will make you understand what pulls in new viewers to your channel. He also talks a lot about how the algorithm is like a lottery, where the more tickets you have, the more likelihood you are to win the lottery. Pretty self-explanatory. And also the idea is, the more you believe in yourself, the more that you believe in the content that you make is worth watching, because you would want to watch that. Other people out there would want to watch it as well. He also talks about the sacrifice you have to make as a creator if you really want to do this full time. I'll let him say this.
The world will do everything it can. It will do everything. And you have to turn on it. You have to say, "F you, world. F you. I'm doing this. I don't care about, I'm going to give up my money. I'm going to give up my relationships. I'm going to stop my social life. I'll do nothing will top the content creation." And if you have that attitude, you will eventually win. And if you don't, best of luck to you, but you're probably not going to put in enough refs to succeed. Doesn't have to be that extreme. I'm a little extreme with this stuff, but it has to be pretty extreme.
I think it's a little extreme. I believe you can still have relationships. I think you can still have a social life and all that, but there are definitely life changes you have to make in order to make this an actual job. So I want to first start by recapping how my year has gone since last September 1st until this September 1st. The job I was working at previously wasn't exactly the most creatively fulfilling. So 1 year ago, I was working for a financial institution, working as a software engineer. I liked the idea of doing software engineering because I thought it'd be really creatively fulfilling. You're solving problems and it affects a lot of people. And I thought that really combined what my brain enjoyed. Also, the money was pretty good. But, 5 years later, it kind of wore down on me. And I found that the people around me were more passionate about what they were doing than what I was doing. Stack that along with, return to office after COVID and a lot of other different things that are very specific to the company that I worked at. And I determined it was my time to leave, especially since my YouTube was picking up, thanks in part to one big video where I quote unquote won the lottery. I mean, you get over 1 million views. Your brain starts to think about new possibilities, I guess. And at that time, I felt like I had at least a year's and a half worth of money in my bank where even if I didn't make a penny on YouTube, I could still technically survive. And I think that's really important because financial stress is something that can weigh down on you heavily, even if it isn't going to immediately impact your life. Just having the idea of you going from something that is stable financially to something that is wildly unstable can do a lot to your brain. It's kind of crazy. But thankfully, over the next 6 months, I did release a couple of videos that did very, very well. One of them even surpassing 1 million views once again, which is wild to me. And that success led me to getting an agent, which was huge because it reinforced me knowing that what I was doing was right. Like, I was on the right path. And soon after, I finally got to 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a subscriber of mine on my main channel already, thank you so much. Like, you have made a dream come true. The rest of the video isn't going to make it sound like it's a dream come true, but I really do appreciate it, trust me. And of course, that led to me having my physical representation, my first play button, that I hang above my printers. And then somehow in March of this year, I was nominated for Pokemon Video of the Year, which is wild. Which is even more wild, though, is enough people voted to make my video the Pokemon Video of the Year for 2023, which is... And yes, you know, it's not an official award ceremony. It's run by a YouTuber who I do respect, but it legitimately meant the world to me because it meant I was doing something right? And then we got to Open Sauce being a convention for a bunch of maker creators. And I got to talk to so many different people who I've watched throughout the years. Point Crow, and of course, Doug. I got to meet him, and I told him, hey, I did your 1-year plan, and so far it's been working out. And he told me, you're the first person who said that's actually worked out for. And I would like to stand here and claim that I'm the first person to actually succeed off of the advice, but that definitely goes to Bringus of Bringus Studios. We were both inspired by Doug at the same time, and he is even way more wildly successful than I am at this point. Also has been a great mentor to me. Shout out to you, John Bringus. If you're actually watching this, you're probably not, but that's okay. But yeah, meeting Doug was a huge deal for me. He was very kind, even though I was a bit nervous, and I was doing this weird thing where I was being insincere and then sincere because I didn't know how to handle the interaction, but it wasn't as awkward as I'm making it out to be. But he was very kind, and he responded to me on Twitter saying, great meeting you, man. Seriously, huge congrats on all your success. And I 3D printed that tweet out, and I hang that above my door, not as an accomplishment, but more so to reinvigorate the fire inside of me, to make sure that I keep this train going, to make sure that I don't let myself down, knowing that I have to continue. Also, I met a bunch of other cool people at Open Sauce. I'm going to be doing some collab videos with them. I can't talk about that right now, but let's move on to the downsides of the first year, because those exist. The first one I alluded to earlier, it's the income uncertainty. If you're coming from like a blue collar desk job where you have a set amount of money that you get every month or per year, etc., plus bonus, you know what you're going to have by the end of the year, and you can plan out your life accordingly. With YouTube, man, is everything a lot more wild. Not only do you not know how much ad revenue you're going to get from YouTube itself, you don't know, how much money you're going to get per month through Patreon. If you have a Patreon, again, shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you. But you don't know if you're going to lock down a sponsor. And for me, at least in my journey, that is where the vast majority of the income has come from, at least in the past 8 months, have been sponsors. And you can broker a deal that's, down here for a month of living, or it can be through the roof. And you really don't know how much you're going to bring in month to month. And that can create some anxiety for sure. When you're doing YouTube, it also can be a lot more isolating, especially if you're in a state where there's not a lot of like-minded YouTubers like you. I'm in Wisconsin. There are a lot of great creators in Wisconsin. Shout outs to Donkey, shout outs to Tierzu, shout outs to Joel Creates. I think he's the only one pretty much in my area that makes content similar to me. But if you're out in LA, you at least have the opportunity to possibly live in a bubble of like-minded creators. So I would say if you're starting out for the first time, try to reach out to as many creators across the country, even across the world that you can, that do the kind of things that you do to make yourself not feel as lonely or insulated as you possibly are, And the final downside I would say that I've experienced over the years is, of course, imposter syndrome. I think every creator, every artist, at one point in their life, if not consistently, will experience imposter syndrome, especially with YouTube, where you can see a metric like views. If they're sometimes, significantly lower than what you're expecting, you feel a great toll upon yourself. And to that, I say you have to pull back and look at everything at a higher level. Remind yourself of the accomplishments you've had before, and try to feed off of that energy to continue, because that's the only thing you can and should be doing, is continuing until you can't. All right, enough with my personal positives and the negatives. I think I have some advice that I can give to you after doing this for 1 year and following another creator who has done it as well. If you haven't already, I would recommend watching DougDoug's video about first-time content creation. It is a bit long. It's a bit under 2 hours. But there's a couple of specifics that I would like to respond to, at least with my experience. So the first thing I want to respond to is DougDoug frames the algorithm a lot like a lottery, and to a certain degree, I agree and mostly disagree with that. I believe if you focus too much on the luck and lottery aspect of the YouTube algorithm, you're just going to set yourself up for failure, because at that point, success will just basically feel unobtainable and out of your control. And YouTube is within your control, and it has a lot to do with the research you do into what makes a successful video, the practice or the reps you put into, putting out more content, because the more content you put out there, the more data points you will have. And not only will you have more data points, you will hopefully have more feedback. And ideally, you'll have people that you can get feedback from on your side, both people within your niche and people outside of your niche, who can tell you what they enjoyed about the video, and more importantly, what they maybe didn't enjoy about the video, or what they maybe felt was a bit weaker. The next thing I want to respond to is DougDoug talked a lot about how you have to make sacrifices in your life in order to make this job work. And while I do agree with that, I also believe while you're building your audience, it's okay to still have a life. It's okay to have your job or still be in school while you're building your audience, because you're still figuring things out. And the big thing is, when you decide to make the leap into full-time YouTube, it really is your decision, and it depends on a lot of factors in your life. People have asked me, when should I quit my job to do YouTube? And that is the one question that I cannot answer, but I can give you the framework to answer for yourself. Personally, I would make sure you have enough savings to at least live off of zero income for 10 to 12 months, which might not be feasible for everyone, but at that point, either your YouTube is making you enough money, or you have accumulated enough money from your job to at least be able to make that decision. And personally, I think I actually jumped into the pool a little early, and I could probably have lived off my money for about 2 years, if I'm being honest. One thing that wasn't really talked about in the DougDoug content, this maybe is a bit more specific, especially if you're a maker channel, is do not be greedy with your content. What does that mean? Well, sometimes you will find something within your content, be it a challenge that you had to overcome or a specific detail that you might find really interesting, but that might not play out to a wider audience. And more importantly, it might not play out to the audience that you currently have. Especially with issues that you have to overcome to make a video or a project happen, you have to make sure that it fits into the narrative, and you have to make sure that you can at least make that interesting. And that can be really difficult. And also, you might want to blab on and on about yourself. And to that, I have to say, make sure that your audience is there for you and not for the things that you create. Sometimes when you start out, the people are there for you because of your personality, and that's great. Definitely lean into that. But sometimes the people are there for what you put out into the world, be it a review or be it some creation that you did, right? It's going to take a while for your audience to want to be there for you, the human, and that is a hard pill you're going to have to swallow early. I know this is ironic, considering that this specific video is about me talking about myself a lot, but this is on my second channel, so it really doesn't matter. And then the final piece of advice I have to give to you is, if you give up, it's over. You'll never make it. The moment you decide to stop making content, to give up on making videos, is the moment you'll never succeed. I know that sounds really corny and generic, but most people who start trying to make content stop pretty early on, and they don't try to develop their skills. They don't try to see what an audience wants. But if you really have that passion within you, you'll see it through until the bitter end or until you find success. And either way, I encourage you to put things out there into the world that you're passionate about and that you think other people want to see as well. For me, I'm going to go at least another year. I'm going to hard commit right now. And I'll check in with you next September 1st. Until then, I'll see ya. And thanks, Doug. You are a legitimate inspiration.